Hey guys, welcome back to another episode here on Spirit of the Raven TV. And in today's episode, we are going to be going over a super beautiful and important topic on how to recognize when God is speaking to you. Okay, so for today's video, I want to make sure that you guys understand that my channel is an all-inclusive channel. I really don't want to speak directly to a certain type, a certain religion. So whenever I am talking about God, if God is a trigger word for you, please feel free to replace it with a word that feels more comfortable. I want you to really find your truth in what I'm saying and take what resonates and leave what doesn't, because you are your own person, you have your own relationship with the universe, God, creator, whatever you call it. And I want to make sure to honor that throughout the video. So grab some tea, grab a coffee, grab your journal, because class is now in session. And so the very first thing we're going to talk about is in what ways God's voice comes through. One is going to be very loud and direct. When God's doing that, that's when we have to have a message. We need that message right away. But God does not always speak like that. It's only when things are very important, they're time sensitive, and must be addressed, God will be very clear and direct. But God also likes to whisper. I find that when God's whispering, it's usually because we have too much going on. We have too much chatter. And this can be when we're asking God questions and God's giving us advice and direction on how to find those answers, but we're not listening. We're not giving space. And so if you feel like God's whispering to you, it could be feeling like you're on the verge of something, but you're not grasping it. Like, there's something I'm meant to know or hear, but I have all these distractions around me. Like, I have the phone going off, the TV in the background, you know, my kids are screaming, my husband wants something, the dog needs to be walked. There's like all these things happening and you're not in a clear channel or space to hear God. Sometimes God screams, sometimes God whispers, and it's really up to God or the universe, creator, on why God chooses these different means to communicate. But I think there is a medicine in the type of communication, right? Like, if you need to be clear and direct and get something done, you know, it comes in urgently. And if God wants you to spend some soul searching time, God might whisper as a means to invite you into a clear space so that you can actually heed the message. And then the last one I would say is questions. God will ask questions, and this is something I think that is really powerful, because often we're like, well, why can't God just tell me the answer? Well, the thing is, as a coach, we learn that when you're working with someone else, you have a better chance of transforming their life permanently when you ask the right questions versus giving them the answer. And the reason for this is when people form their own neural pathways in their brain about an answer or a solution, it's a permanent, well, you know, obviously we can change our neural pathways, but it's a permanent pathway that they can reuse again. But if you're just telling them the answer, they might get to it, but then if that situation comes up again, they didn't learn, right? And so sometimes God, when we're asking questions to God, God will respond with better questions that we can ask, or better questions for us to ponder on, that leads us to the answer ourselves. Because sometimes we're meant to get a direct communication and in a direct form of action, and then sometimes we're meant to take it deeper and really explore what it is that God's trying to tell us, or what adventure God's putting us on. Right? And so next I want to go over the when. When will God communicate with us? When are those big moments? God can communicate to you at any given time in your life. There's no limit to when God can talk to you, but there are major moments in the human life that it is almost guaranteed that God is speaking. Really, I think God's speaking to us all the time, but it's the moments when we're really close to that veil and able to hear the messages the most clear. One is going to be when you are in a major transformative time in your life. So let's say big decisions have to be made, like whether you stay with your partner or leave your partner, or you need to move to a new city, or you need to, you know, change careers. you know, when you're at that transformative point in life, you're going to be asking a lot of questions to God, to the universe, like, please help me, please help me. Another big one is right after you ask a question, you go to the creator and you ask the question, or you have open dialogue, expect an answer. Another time that God is most likely to speak to you is when God has sent you into isolation or hermit mode. And this is really something that's been happening to us on a grand scale with recent events. A lot of people have been isolated. They've been on their own. They've been in their own stuff, pondering, wondering about what direction to go into. These are often times when God will speak to us, and sometimes it really takes us being isolated and alone and removing all the distractions to be able to hear clearly. So if you feel like you're alone or you're lonely, this could actually be a very crucial time in your spiritual development. And though it might be uncomfortable, there could be a big reason why God has placed you there. So definitely be on the listen, the lookout, and all the things when you feel alone. We kind of touched on a little bit of what God's voice sounds like. I'm going to go into that way deeper right here on the different ways to which you can have God appear to you and give you a message. One is through strangers. And I always think about that song. It's like, what if God was one of us? I'm not a singer, guys, but I'm trying. Just a stranger on the bus. That song has a lot of truth to it. God can appear as anyone at any given time. It's usually someone you don't know. And sometimes it will be people that you know, but you have all this built up belief about who this person is and what their advice is worth to you in what area. And there could be too many limitations in your mind around the people that you know. Not saying God won't use them, because God definitely will. But sometimes I found in my own life and in a lot of my clients' life is that strangers have some of the greatest ways to communicate with us. And I actually have a story that I want to give you guys about a time that a homeless person who presented as a homeless person was actually an angel. And this was not a crazy event in my life, but I guess it is for me, and symbolically what it meant was an important life moment. And so I was driving around trying to figure out what to do with my life, because at the time I lived in LA and my roommates decided that it was time for us to split ways. We had lived together for 3 years. We all were at this precipice, which we knew was coming. And at the time, my intention was to move in LA, to find another spot in LA. But when I heard that it was time for us to go, everything in me was like, I can't live here. I can't live here. My time here is done. I have to go. And I know that feeling before. You know, I'm very whimsical. I'm named after a bird. I'm migratory. And so I know what it feels like when the wind picks up and it's time to spread my wings and fly. But I had no direction. I had no clear direction on where to go. And so I was in this parking lot, and I remember just being upset. I've been crying that day because of the fear and frustration of not knowing what to do next. And I prayed for clarity. I was like, God, please help give me clarity. Help me see the path before me and know what I need to do so I can feel confident in my foot, in my steps, so I know that I'm being led on the right path. And as I'm sitting there saying this prayer, all of a sudden I hear a tap on my window, and I look up and I'm like startled because it's like this older homeless man. And at first I'm like, oh, like he's really close. Is he gonna try and grab me? You know, like what is he gonna do? And then a wash came over me of no fear. There was like no fear. It just went like, whew, gone. And I rolled down my window and he goes, hey, can I wash your window shield for you? And this is something a lot of homeless people do in LA. I don't know if they're probably in other bigger cities to make money, is they'll like wash windows. But this was like in a weird place too. It wasn't like I wasn't on the road. I was in this like alleyway, not like a chill spot, you know? And so I was just kind of like, yeah, like you can clean it. And I wasn't thinking much about the time about what I had just prayed. It was just like I got startled and I was in this. And then as he's washing my window, I'm like, God, I'm praying for clarity. And then I look up and then the guy looks at me and he goes, your windshield's really dirty. It's really hard to see your way, isn't it? And it's just like everything in me was like, oh my God. I was gonna cry because it was just so beautiful, because I realized like God was showing me like, I'm cleaning your windshield, like you're gaining clarity as we speak. And he just kept cleaning it, and he kept saying, like, you know, now you can see clearly, now you can see clearly. And he had no idea that I was praying this, because it wasn't like an out loud thing. I went home that night and I just had this sense of peace of God being like, you have clarity, like I'm giving you clarity. And I accepted it. I accepted that I was going to see everything clearly. And then next thing you know, it just started falling into place. Like I made this list about what I wanted in a city, and I put that out to the universe. I was like, this is what I'm looking for. And the next day, everything was like, Austin, move to Austin. What do you think of Austin? What if you moved to Austin? It was like coming in the weirdest ways, like everywhere. And so I knew Austin was the move for me, and I was right. I've been here for almost a year now, and I love it here. So that was like one of those ways that God was like, I have your back. I'm going to use a stranger. I'm going to use symbology, and I'm going to use signs and symbols. So expect God to come in through any means. Like, do not think that everything is exactly what you see. Sometimes things have a deeper meaning, and it could very well be God in human form. Another way that God's going to come through is going to be thoughts. And again, this is like what I was talking about with screaming or whispers. It can be very much words. And this is, I guess, really what I would say is words. So when God's coming in through words, it can be in the form of thoughts. It can be in the form of a song lyric. It could be picking up a book, getting the right message at the right time. But some people, it is very much straight thoughts. Like you will have a thought, and it might sound like your voice, but it also might not. You might have a voice that you know it's God, and you just know, like you'll feel tingles, you'll feel shivers, just something in you will resonate as truth. This is important. I need to listen. And those thoughts, again, it can be a whisper. And often when it's a whisper, we're being disconnected from spirit, or because God does not leave you, you leave God. Right? God's always here. God's always here. Like, let's connect. Let's be one. I want to be in relationship with you. And then in our lives, we like get distracted and come back, and get distracted and come back. So when you feel like God's a whisper, it's because you're distant. Bring yourself back, and that voice will get louder for you. Sometimes if you are feeling really connected and God's whispering, it could be because you're meant to go inward, and God's trying to invite you in, like, you know. So there's a purpose for the means and ways to which God communicates. Dreams are another big way that God communicates with us, and sometimes God will use actual thought forms, words to communicate in the dream. And so for me, when I'm right about to wake up, sometimes God will speak directly to me as words, and it's like the moment I'm about to wake up. And so it sticks with me. I like remember it because my consciousness, it's like I'm coming back into consciousness, and it's right then that God's like, let me drop a mic drop on you, you know? And so I'll hear, and often these are for me in the form of riddles. You know, God loves to speak riddles to me and ask questions. One of the times I remember I was about to wake up, and God said, if you are not your name, if you are not your body, if you are not even your personality or your purpose, then who are you? And weeks and weeks, I don't even want to say weeks because I'm still pondering over this one, and like really sitting with, okay, if I'm not my name or my personality, even like all the things I think make up me, you know, my purpose, you know, like if I don't have any of that, then what am I? Who am I? And so that was a very, you know, obviously that's a bigger topic for another video, but sometimes God will speak through riddles, or it can be, again, direct messages of, you need to leave this person, you need to pick up this, you know, work that I've given you, or you need to go help this person, right? God can be very direct, and God can speak in riddles and in questions. Another way that God will speak to you is through messengers, and this might not be a stranger speaking to you. This could be literally messengers of spirit. We're talking about appearances. If a presence comes to you, like having an angel visit you, having a spirit visit you, or having an animal visit you. Big messenger animals are birds. You know, if you're getting a lot of signs of bird medicine around you, and I have a whole section on my YouTube for animal totems. So if you're having ravens, crows, doves, pigeons, I mean, whatever bird it is, they are all messengers. So there's a good chance, if you're seeing a lot of birds, that God is nearby trying to deliver a message to you, and you now need to position yourself to receive it. So be on the lookout if you do see that. Of course, God can give you messages in many ways. It could be through a movie, a book. It could be, again, you could pick up a book and open it up and read the first page, and God might have a message for you on there. When you're seeking God, God is everywhere, right? You're seeking something that is everywhere and can influence everything. So again, there's no limit here to the ways that messengers can come through. It can be a tarot reader. It could be someone on YouTube. It could be me right now. It could be anybody in your life. God will use messengers oftentimes with direct messages to you. Another way is just feelings. So now this is kind of diving into the different spiritual abilities. You know, there's 4 main spiritual abilities. There's clairsentience, claircognizance, clairvoyance, and clairaudience. And clear feeling is the strongest in most humans. It is our gut instinct. So sometimes, again, that gut instinct, instead of hearing go left or go right, you could be like, I need to go this way. You know, avoid this road, or you just get a bad feeling like you should stay home, or you should go talk to someone and ask someone out. You know, like you get these impulses that kind of shoot through you that are wordless, but they come with a clear feeling of what you need to do next. So sometimes God doesn't even use words and instead relies on your feeling, impulses, desires, and knowing who you are and how to move you. God will use that to move you. And then, of course, one of my favorite ways, I have to bring this up, is symbolism. And symbolism for me is huge. This is clairvoyant, clear seeing. And this is not a very common one. So I know some of you might not think this is the best way to receive messages from God, and that's okay. But for me, this is my primary way of getting messages from God, and this is my favorite way to get messages. So it's mainly through symbolism. So ever since I was a young child, I would see messages in like chipped paint, you know, the bottom of my cereal bowl, you know, in the ground. And I'll even show you some examples of ones I'm getting lately. Like I'm getting skulls, and I'm also getting hearts. These have meanings for me. Like when I see certain things, I know God is speaking to me, and we've been doing this for so many years now that we have an entire language in symbols. So if God starts sending me a certain symbol, I know exactly what God's speaking of. And again, I love when God gives me riddles. I'm one of those weird people that, like, sometimes I do want direct, of course, when it's a serious thing, when I'm like, where do I move? What do I do? I'm like, can you just be clear? And then other times though, I actually really like being breadcrumbed into, you know, Alice in Wonderland type of adventures with God and spirit. Like God will start sending me all these little things and I have to interpret them. And sometimes I will be stuck on a synchronicity for weeks, and then out of nowhere, it like all comes together and I'm just like, phew, love it. So for me, again, I have different meanings. Like when I start seeing skulls, that's usually a sign of death, and I don't usually mean death. Whenever someone in my life's about to pass, God does not send me skulls. God will send me angels. God will send me beautiful, beautiful signs. It's not ever scary like a skull or, you know, death coming, you know. It's never given to me like that. It's always very gentle. But if it's a sign of an symbolic death, an ego death, then I will very much get skulls. So I need to listen now for more information. Like what area of my life is this coming in? And so the next sign could be a representation of what area of life I'm going to be experiencing this death in, right? And I have signs for all of that, so I know what it will mean. A good example is the heart, you know, and we're dealing with hearts, we're dealing with emotion, with vulnerability, with relationships, and how I handle all of that. So when I get a lot of signs of hearts, I know that I'm moving into some type of an emotional awareness. And usually hearts are a good sign of emotions. It's when I'm having dreams of tsunamis and things like that, I know that I'm going to be dealing with, you know, uncontrollable emotions that I have to learn to navigate. And so another fun symbol that I saw today is the Nike check mark. And when God shows you brands, obviously God is not saying that it's like, I promote this brand or I stand for this brand. It's just more of, in my mind, I have linked this check mark to the phrase, just do it. You know, and so when I see it, I feel a feeling of go for whatever it is you're thinking about. And so you are going to have your own meanings. Like if a check mark means something different, like you've done the best you could, you know, God's going to send you that as a means to say you've done the best you could. So really trust yourself and how you interpret symbols. It's, you know, God might give us riddles and stuff, but it's not meant to be like unsolvable. They're meant to be, you know, related to you. Of course, again, there's numbers as well. You might see 1111, 222. These are all different symbols, and this is working with the clairvoyant ability of seeing signs and symbols and relating them as a message. And I have an entire video on this. So if you are getting number signs like 1111, 2222, you can check out that video, and I go through each of the different numbers and what they mean for you. So that can take it a little bit deeper. And of course, again, I have a whole library of animal totems. So if you're seeing signs of animals, you can look at those videos and figure out what the symbolism means for you. So now I want to jump into the section of where. Where can you be and how can you position yourself to hear messages and being open to them? You know, as I said, a likely time that you're going to get a message is right after you ask a question. And so when you ask a question, you need to know that an answer is coming in. It will come in no matter what. It'll come at the right time. You can do things to be able to position yourself to hear more clearly. And one of the ways is to go out in nature, to spend time next to water, to spend time with plants, animals, earth medicine. That really calms us. It helps us clear the chatter. It helps us drop into the present moment. And that's really the goal, is to drop into the present moment and to focus. And for some people, that is meditating, you know, in their house, and they're able to get to that space with meditation. But for some people, you need to just go out into nature and really plant yourself into the womb of earth and listen for the messages that come through. And this could be just a feeling. It could be a drop-in of almost like where that man, when he cleaned off the window and he's like, I'm giving you clarity. You know, I got clarity. Well, it was pretty quick after that, but it wasn't immediate, right? It was within the next few days, I started gaining clarity and clarity and clarity. And so you might be receiving the message, but it's starting to trickle in. So even if you go out into the woods and you don't hear anything, you can trust that the process has started. That whatever you're meant to know, you are starting to know and embody. Another way to position yourself is baths and showers. There is something about the static noise, the, you know, drowning out of noise, and being in the shower and feeling water cleanse our body and move through us, that just gives us great ideas. And this is a prime time for God to speak to you, because, and it might feel like it's your own idea, right? Where you solve a problem instantly. You're like, oh my God, this is what I should do. Or you have a great idea of something you want to pursue. These moments are great ways for God to speak to you because you're available for it. You know, you're in a position where the noise content, the feeling, it's all in flow. It's helping you be present in the moment. And again, the more present you are, the more likely God's going to speak to you in that moment. And then of course, you know, I mentioned earlier, hermit mode. If you're spending a lot of time by yourself, or you're going on, you know, vision quests, or you're literally taking space, you're not going out, you're staying home, and you're doing your meditations, your journaling, your bath times, your rituals, your prayers, you know, that's a prime time for God to speak to you, because you are actively pursuing listening. You are really active listening. With all of these points, again, God is limitless. Like, there is no way that God is limited to a type of way to speak to us or a type of way to talk. God can come in any form. But I just wanted to give you guys some signs that God is speaking to you. If you are seeing, you know, symbols, if you are seeing numbers, if you are getting animals, if you are having ideas, getting pulled into hermit mode, if you are, you know, feeling like there's something you're missing, or if you're having intense dreams, if you're meeting strangers that have these messages for you, these are all signs that God is talking to you, and it's time for you to listen, because anytime God speaks to us, it's powerful. Even if it's a whisper, even if it's a riddle and it makes no sense, even if it's direct and, you know, like you see an immediate result from it, you know, they're all powerful. I really hope this video helped you guys out. So I'm really open for any other topics you guys want me to cover. So please drop them in the comment section, and I will be happy to make videos on any questions you guys have. You guys get all the signs and all the messages, and until next time, happy sign seeking.